Hey everyone, and welcome back to another World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth video. Today we're going to be talking about allied races, which are a new feature in this expansion, and actually one that is quite exciting. We saw the data mining that suggested some of this, but what Blizzard are actually planning is far greater in terms of a lot of the specifics. So before we get into it, of course my full coverage of this expansion will continue heavily throughout the weekend, and of course continue on through the coming weeks, so be sure to check out that subscribe button if you're interested in more updates. Okay, let's just get right into it. Blizzard are introducing allied races, and the great thing is that this new feature kicks off with new quest content. The core idea is that with the Alliance and the Horde going to war, we need to look for new allies to help us out in the fight. And the story of how we onboard those new allies is actually going to be covered via in-game content. You don't just log in one day, hit a button, and magically you're able to make all of them. So, for each of the new allied races, there's going to be a questline. It follows their narrative integration into the Alliance and the Horde. So you need to do that questline on your main to unlock them account-wide. Now, I think this is a really wonderful way of doing things. It makes World of Warcraft a better RPG, makes it more immersive, and I'm really happy that now the team finally is able to do more stuff like this. For whatever reason, it just really seems like they've nailed down their content creation pipeline during Legion. So, let's talk about each of the new races that we're getting, including a lore primer. So, first up we have the Nightborn. They're going to be added to the Horde, which might initially seem odd to you, but, well, it does make a bit of sense. Of course, we're all familiar with these guys from back in Legion, and the core hook is that they have a shared struggle with the Blood Elves. Both of these groups have struggled with magical addiction, of course with the Nightwell and the Sunwell. And when you're on the Vindicar, if you talk to Lady Liadrin, you can see her chatting with the Nightborn NPCs, and at the end of that, the Nightborn says they have a lot to think about in terms of their shared struggles and where the two races could actually go in the future. Now, we also saw that the Blood Elves committed more resources to the Nightfallen insurrection in patch 7.1. So overall, it seems like there are good narrative hooks for these guys to go with the Horde. However, I do think that, there has to be some sort of alliance betrayal that will fully make them not be a neutral party, and that will probably be covered in the quests. Next, the High Mountain Tauren. Of course, they're being added to the Horde. It makes a lot of sense. The Horde already have the Taurens, so I really don't think there's too much to explain here. The core lore is essentially just that they are a Tauren tribe who was cut off after the Sundering. Then adding Zandalari trolls is certainly an interesting direction for Blizzard. I've got to imagine that they're going to make the Zandalari that we get a different subsection of the core Zandalari that we've been fighting for years, or at least maybe have a plotline that's focusing on their reunion with the Darkspear. Now, what I really hope for is that we see the repercussions of Vol'jin's death be explored here, doubly so if we get to see a little bit more what was going on with those Loa voices. And then moving on to the Alliance, we have Void Elves. So these are pretty much a crack group of elite, trained by Illyria Windrunner to essentially harness the powers of the Void, as we saw in patch 7.3. Now, many people are interested in the relationship between Illyria and Sylvanas going into this expansion, and seeing as Illyria is heading up what seems to be a group of Alliance special forces, it's fair to say that will be a combative relationship. Then the Dark Iron Dwarves are another logical addition to the game, and also they're an easy enough one to develop, so it just makes common sense, though they do look pretty cool. Now, with the diamondification of Magni Bronzebeard in the Cataclysm, his daughter Moira, who was the leader of the Dark Iron after her husband died, she headed to Ironforge, and eventually the ruling council of the Three Hammers was set up to manage Ironforge. And in patch 5.3, we essentially saw Moira take up and fight for the Alliance in one of the Mists of Pandaria scenarios. So it makes a lot of sense that they're pretty much being added to the game as their own unique race. At some point I'd love to see the Wildhammer though. And then we've got the Lightforged Draenei. These are a really interesting group. So what is Lightforging? Lightforging is the process where an individual wholly submits to a Naru, in this case Xira. Now, in return, they are empowered by the light. This is what Xira seems to have been trying to do on Illidan. Of course, it didn't really work out too well for her. Now, having Lightforged and Void allies is certainly an interesting way to do things for Blizzard. They very much are opposing forces on a fundamental level. When Illyria pulled Turalian to safety through a Void portal in the audiobook, it basically caused him great pain because as a Lightforged individual, contact with the Void is very much a dangerous thing. Now, they have a bunch of unique customization options. New horns, hair, tattoos. Hopefully we'll see a lot of the new Warlords of Draenor and Legion horns that Draenei had that players didn't have access to actually be added. Now, like all races in the game, these guys will have their own racial abilities, as well as a bunch of new customization options. The unique thing about these is that they actually start at level 20. And once you have unlocked them account-wide, yes, you can race change to them, you can level boost, but, and I love this, Blizzard have something special in store for you if you actually level one up yourself. So you will actually get a race-based unique transmog. These are called heritage sets, so they'll be unlocked account-wide, it seems. I think that's really cool. It gives you a reward for actually playing through the content as one of these new characters. Makes a lot of narrative sense as well. You know, you join the Alliance, you quest with them, you go through all the continents, and yeah, I think it's great to have an RP-friendly reward like that. That's not something that's going to hurt the high-end players, but it's just a nice little addition. So what I've mentioned here is the 6 races that we know are coming with this expansion. But here's the awesome thing. Blizzard see this system as something that can be added to over time. And this means that we might see even more new races in the game, perhaps at a faster pace than we've actually seen in the past. So, let's talk about some potential new races that could be added. And I'm going to start off with my personal favourite, the Tuskar. These guys have been one of my favourite races in the game for a very long time indeed, and having them be added I think would be fantastic. As much as, you know, they are funny little guys, it might not make perfect sense, but hey, I think it would be cool. Now, of course, while we're mentioning Northrend, there's 2 other groups to talk about. The Tonka are a group of Tauren. Well, they're very similar to the Tauren, but they're more adapted to that harsh northern climate, so it would make a lot of sense to add them in for the Horde. And then, of course, we have Vrykul, also natives to Northrend. We saw quite a few of them in Stormheim as well. And with Vrykul, you know, again, it would be tricky in terms of model size and all of that stuff, but I think it could be quite interesting to have them be added. Now, we did mention the Tonka, who are a Tauren group. It could be possible to add some of the Yangol, who are another Tauren group. It's also worth mentioning the Jinyu. We met them in Mists of Pandaria. I could see those fitting player models quite well. As for the Hosen, not 100% sure how that would actually work out, so perhaps not. Now, of course, you do have all your various high elves and, you know, half elves and half this and half that could be added if they wanted to. And of course, we also have ogres. Ogres were planned at one point for the game. They didn't actually make it in, but there are groups of ogres currently in the game that would make sense in terms of being able to, you know, fit through doors and all of that. But I really think Mok'Nathal would be an extremely cool race to add for the Horde players. Especially if you could get a new quest line with Rexxar that would cover maybe the rest of the tribe coming over from Outland, or at least tell us the story of what's been going on with those guys. So overall, I think this is a really cool addition to the game. What I particularly love, though, is that they're setting up a structure that can be added to in the future, something that will give players more characters to roll, more unique customization stuff, and ultimately, it's an MMORPG. The RPG part of that, I think, is something that still is very important, even if what a lot of people really care about is the raids and the timed Mythic Plus and all of that. I still think the RPG bit's good, and it's nice to see that be added to. So, there you go. That's my thoughts on this pretty damn cool new feature. Yeah, of course, BlizzCon stuff is all going on, so be sure to subscribe to the channel for notifications on that. We're working on quite a lot of videos to give you proper in-depth coverage that's, you know, concise and respects your time as the weekend goes on. So, thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.